At Christmas, my parents turned away my 8-year-old daughter at their front door. She had to walk 2 miles alone in the freezing cold, carrying every gift she had bought for them, while they drank champagne inside their warm mansion. When I found out, I did not scream, and I did not cry. I simply took action. 6 hours later, their lives started to unravel, and they had no idea who pulled the thread. My name is Nia, and at 32 years old, I have made a career out of finding things that people want to keep hidden. I am a forensic auditor. Companies hire me when numbers do not add up or when money goes missing. I am paid to be cold, calculating, and precise. But nothing prepared me for the audit I am about to perform on my own family. Before I dive into this story that involves a $3 million mansion, a 90-year-old matriarch, and the most satisfying revenge I have ever orchestrated, please let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And if you have ever been treated like an outsider by your own blood, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to see how this ends. Right now, I am sitting in my living room. The fire is crackling, but I feel nothing but ice in my veins. I am holding a glass of vintage red wine that costs more than my mother's entire outfit, a fact she would hate if she knew. My phone is sitting on the coffee table face down. It has been ringing non-stop for 20 minutes. It is my mother, Patricia. She probably wants to know why the police just pulled into her driveway, but she will have to wait. To understand why I am about to destroy my family's reputation, you have to understand the lie they have been living. We live in Atlanta. Specifically, we are talking about Buckhead, the land of old money manicured lawns and black iron gates. My parents, Calvin and Patricia, live in a sprawling estate that looks like something out of a magazine. To the outside world, they are the pillars of the community. My father is a deacon and my mother heads the charity board. They are obsessed with image. In their world, black excellence is not just a phrase, it is a weapon. It means you must be perfect. You must have the right hair, the right degrees, and the right skin tone. I have always been a disappointment to them. I am too independent. My skin is darker than my sister-in-law's. I divorced a man they liked because he was rich even though he was controlling. And I chose a career in finance that keeps me behind the scenes instead of marrying a doctor or a lawyer. But my daughter Zola is the innocent victim in their war against imperfection. Zola is 8 years old. She has asthma and a heart so big it hurts to watch sometimes. She spent 2 weeks making hand-painted ornaments for her grandparents. She was so excited for the Christmas Eve party. I was called away on an emergency audit in Chicago, so my ex-husband was supposed to drop her off at my parents' house for the party. I can picture it perfectly because I have watched the security footage 10 times in the last hour. My ex-husband's car, a sensible sedan that my mother despises, pulls up to the gate. He buzzes in. He drops Zola off at the front steps because he received a text from my brother saying the driveway was full of VIP guests. Zola is standing there. It is 35 degrees outside. She is wearing her favorite puffy pink coat. It is not a designer coat. It is from Target. It is warm, and she loves it. Her hair is in 2 puffballs because that is how she likes it. She is clutching a bag of gifts. She looks happy. She walks up the massive stone steps and rings the doorbell. Inside that house are 50 people. The mayor is there, the bishop is there, my brother Darius and his wife Tiffany are there. Tiffany is white, and she is the darling of the family because she plays the part of the obedient trophy wife perfectly. The door opens. It is my mother, Patricia. She is wearing a gold sequined gown and holding a crystal flute. I watched the footage. I saw her face change. She did not smile. She did not open her arms. She looked at her 8-year-old granddaughter like she was a stain on a silk dress. The audio from the Ring camera is crisp. Patricia looked down at Zola and said, "What are you doing here?" Zola smiled and held up the bag. "Merry Christmas, Grandma. I brought your presents." Patricia did not step aside to let her in. She actually stepped forward to block the gap in the door. Behind her, I could hear jazz music and laughter. I could see the warm glow of the chandeliers. Patricia lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. Look at you. You look like a street urchin. This is a formal event, Zola. The mayor is sitting right there in the foyer. Zola looked confused. Her smile started to fade. But Daddy said I was supposed to come for dinner. Patricia scoffed. Not looking like that. Look at your hair. It is unkempt. And that coat is hideous. I told your mother this was a black tie affair. We have important guests. I cannot have you running around looking like a charity case. It reflects poorly on the family. Zola shivered. I can take my coat off, Grandma. I have a dress on underneath. Patricia glanced back over her shoulder, terrified that one of her high society friends might see her less than perfect grandchild. No, it is too late. You are disrupting the flow. We are about to say grace. You need to go home. Zola's voice trembled. But Daddy left. He went to his shift at the hospital. I do not have a ride. Patricia rolled her eyes. A gesture I have seen 1,000 times. We'll call him back. Or walk to the guard station at the front of the subdivision. Someone will pick you up. I cannot deal with this right now. Tiffany's parents are here and everything has to be perfect. And then my mother, the woman who claims to be a pillar of Christian charity, did the unthinkable. She looked at my 8-year-old daughter shivering in the cold and said, "Goodbye, Zola. We will send you a plate later." And she closed the door. I watched the timestamp on the video. The heavy oak door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Zola stood there for a full minute. She just stared at the wood. She knocked one more time softly. No one answered. The music inside got louder. Then she turned around. She wiped her eyes with her mitten, and she started walking. The guard station is 2 miles away from the main house. It is a winding road with no sidewalks, because rich people in Buckhead do not walk places. They drive. Zola walked in the dark. It started to sleet. I was on a plane when this happened. My phone was on airplane mode. I landed in Atlanta an hour ago and turned my phone on. I had missed calls, not from my mother, not from my brother. I had a voicemail from a number I did not know. A gas station clerk named Marcus. I played the message, and the sound of his voice stopped my heart. Ms. Williams. Marcus said, his voice panicked. I have a little girl here at the Chevron on Piedmont. She walked in about 10 minutes ago. She is freezing and she is having trouble breathing. She says her name is Zola. She says her grandma locked her out. She gave me your number. Please hurry, she is wheezing pretty bad. I stared at the phone. My hand started to shake. The rage started in my stomach, hot and violent. My mother did not just reject my daughter, she endangered her life. Zola has asthma. Cold air triggers it, stress triggers it. A 2-mile walk in freezing rain could kill her. I looked at the glass of wine in my hand. The expensive vintage red, the symbol of the sophisticated life I built to try and make them proud. I squeezed the glass. The crystal shattered. Shards of glass dug into my palm. Red wine mixed with bright red blood dripped onto my white carpet. I did not feel the pain. I only felt clarity. My mother thinks she can close the door on my family. She thinks she can hide behind her gates and her money and her reputation. But she forgot one thing. I am an auditor, and I know where all the bodies are buried. I grabbed my keys. I did not call the police yet. I did not call my mother. I got in my car to go get my daughter, and as I backed out of the driveway, I made a promise. By the time the sun comes up on Christmas morning, my parents will wish they had never opened that door in the first place. Because I am not coming to dinner to eat. I am coming to collect the debt. The drive to the gas station was a blur of red taillights and blinding sleet. My knuckles were white against the leather steering wheel. The windshield wipers slashed back and forth like a metronome, counting down the seconds of my patience. Every time my phone buzzed with another call from my mother, I gripped the wheel tighter. She was calling because she needed to control the narrative, not because she cared about where Zola was. I let it ring. I pulled into the Chevron station on Piedmont Avenue. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow on the wet pavement. It was a stark contrast to the crystal chandeliers and warm fireplaces of my parents' estate in Buckhead. This was the reality my mother had forced her granddaughter into while she sipped champagne. I saw them through the glass storefront. Marcus the clerk was sitting on a milk crate near the heater, and Zola was curled up on a plastic chair wrapped in a scratchy gray blanket that looked like it belonged in a trunk. I parked the car crookedly and ran inside. The bell on the door chimed, and Zola's head snapped up. Her face was pale. Her lips had a terrifying blue tint to them. She was clutching her chest, and I could hear the wheezing from across the room. It was that tight, high-pitched whistle that every parent of an asthmatic child dreads. "Mommy!" she gasped. I was on my knees beside her in a second. I pulled the nebulizer out of my purse because I never go anywhere without it. I set it up right there on the dirty linoleum floor of the gas station. Marcus watched with wide eyes, but he did not say a word. He just handed me a bottle of water. "Breathe, baby," I whispered, rubbing her back. "Just breathe." It took 10 minutes for her breathing to stabilize. 10 minutes of me watching my child fight for air while the image of my mother closing that heavy oak door played in my mind on a loop. When Zola finally took a deep, clear breath, she looked at me with tears in her big brown eyes. She looked so small in that oversized coat. "I am sorry I ruined Christmas, Mommy," she whispered. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I brushed the damp hair off her forehead. "You did not ruin anything, Zola. Why would you think that?" She looked down at her boots. "Grandma Patricia said I looked like a street rat. She said the mayor was there and I would embarrass her because I did not match the theme. She said I was too dark and messy to be in the family photo." The air left my lungs. It was not just about the coat. It was never just about the coat. It was about colorism. It was about the toxic obsession my parents had with appearance and proximity to whiteness. Zola has my skin tone, deep, rich melanin. My brother Darius and his wife Tiffany are lighter, brighter, and more palatable to the country club, set my parents' desperate try to impress. I picked Zola up. She is 8 years old and almost too big to carry, but in that moment, she felt as light as a feather. I turned to Marcus. "Thank you," I said. My voice was steady, but it felt like it was coming from someone else. I pulled $500 bills from my wallet and pressed them into his hand. "Thank you for saving her life." He tried to refuse, but I insisted. I carried my daughter to the car and buckled her in. I turned the seat warmer on high. As I drove away from the gas station, I came to a stop sign. To the left was the highway that led back to my house. To the right was the road that led back to Buckhead, back to the mansion, back to my parents. My hands turned the wheel to the right. I wanted to go there. Every fiber of my being wanted to drive through their iron gates, march into that dining room, and flip the table. I wanted to scream at my mother in front of the mayor. I wanted to slap the smug look off my sister-in-law Tiffany's face. I wanted to burn their reputation to the ground with the fire of my rage. I pressed the gas pedal, the engine roared. But then I looked in the rearview mirror. Zola was asleep. Her chest was rising and falling rhythmically. She was safe. If I went there now, I would be the angry black woman they always accused me of being. I would be hysterical. I would be the villain who ruined Christmas dinner. They would gaslight me. They would say I was overreacting. They would say Zola misunderstood. They would spin the story until I was the crazy one. I took my foot off the gas. I am not crazy. I am a forensic auditor. In my line of work, we do not scream, we do not make scenes, we collect data, we build a case, we wait until the evidence is so overwhelming that the defendant has no room to maneuver. Screaming is for amateurs, silence is for professionals. I turned the wheel to the left. I drove home. The drive took 20 minutes. I carried Zola inside and brought her straight to my bathroom. I ran a hot bath with eucalyptus salts to help her lungs. I washed the smell of the gas station off her skin. I put her in her favorite silk pajamas and made her a cup of hot cocoa with extra marshmallows. I stayed with her until she fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Only then did I walk out of her room and close the door. The silence in my house was heavy. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. I went downstairs to my office. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen glowed blue in the dark room, illuminating my face. I did not open my work email. I opened a private browser. 3 years ago, my parents asked me to upgrade their security system. They wanted the best. Cameras at every entrance, motion sensors, high-definition audio. They were terrified of break-ins. They wanted to keep the bad elements out. They never realized that the system they installed to keep people out would be the very thing that trapped them in. I typed in the IP address. I entered the admin username and password. They had never changed it. Why would they? They barely knew how to use the remote control for the TV. The dashboard loaded. I saw the live feed. I could see the party still going on. I saw the waiters passing trays of hors d'oeuvres. I saw my father laughing with the bishop holding a cigar. I saw Tiffany showing off her diamond ring to a group of women who looked bored. They looked so happy. They looked so secure. I navigated to the timeline. I scrolled back 6 hours. There it was. The timestamp said 6:42 p.m. I pressed play. I watched my ex-husband's car pull up. I watched Zola get out. I watched her walk up the steps. I turned the volume all the way up. I needed to hear it. I needed to hear the exact tone of voice my mother used. I watched the door open. I saw the look of disgust on Patricia's face. It was high-definition cruelty. I hit the record button on my screen capture software. I let the video play. I listened to every word. "You look like a street urchin. You are disrupting the flow. Go home, Zola." I watched my mother close the door. I saved the file. I named it Exhibit A. Then I went to the cloud storage. I downloaded the entire history for the last month. Every entry, every exit, every conversation on the front porch. But I did not stop there. An auditor looks for patterns. If they were this cruel to a child in public, what were they doing in private? I opened a second tab. I logged into the Family Trust Banking portal. Big Mama Hattie had given me view-only access years ago so I could help her with taxes. My parents did not know I still had it. I looked at the ledger. My eyes scanned the columns: dates, merchants, amounts. A normal trust fund ledger for property maintenance should be boring. It should be utility bills, property taxes, and landscaping fees. This ledger was not boring. I saw a charge for $50,000. The recipient was Tifdari Consulting LLC. I saw another charge for $25,000. The memo said, "Emergency roof repair." But I zoomed in on the date. It was dated 2 days ago. It has not rained in Atlanta for 3 weeks until tonight. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. They weren't just abusing Zola. They were embezzling from Big Mama Hattie. My mother had closed the door on Zola because she was afraid Zola would tarnish the family image. But sitting there in the dark, with the blue light of the laptop reflecting in my eyes, I realized something. I was about to tarnish their image permanently. I picked up my phone. It was time to make the first call. Not to my mother, not to the police. I dialed the number for the one person in this world who hated thieves more than I did. Big Mama Hattie. She answers on the first ring. "Nia," she said, her voice raspy but sharp. "Why are you calling me this late? Is Zola okay?" I took a deep breath. "No, Big Mama. Zola is not okay, and neither is your bank account. I need you to listen to me very carefully." I hit send on the video file. The war has begun. The sun rose over Atlanta on Christmas morning, but it brought no warmth to my house. Zola was still asleep in her room, exhausted from the trauma of the night before. I sat at my kitchen island with a cup of black coffee and my phone. My heart was not racing anymore. It had settled into a slow, steady rhythm of calculated destruction. I had the video footage. I had the bank statements. Now I needed the confession. I did not call my mother on the regular phone line. I pressed the FaceTime button. I wanted to see their faces. I wanted them to look me in the eye when they tried to justify leaving an 8-year-old girl in the freezing rain. The phone rang 4 times. Finally, the screen connected. My mother Patricia filled the frame. She was sitting in her sunroom, wearing a silk robe that cost more than my first car. Her hair was wrapped perfectly in a silk scarf, and she was sipping tea from fine china. Behind her, I could see the expansive manicured lawn of the estate. It looked peaceful. It looked perfect. It was a lie. Nia. Her voice was not apologetic. It was annoyed. Do you have any idea what time it is? We were up until 3 in the morning entertaining the bishop. I am exhausted. I stared at the screen. I did not raise my voice. Where is my daughter's apology, mother? Patricia scoffed. She actually rolled her eyes and took a sip of her tea. Apology. You should be the one apologizing to me. Do you know how embarrassing it was to have that child show up on my doorstep looking like a refugee? I had the mayor in my foyer, Nia. The mayor. And here comes your daughter wearing some puffy monstrosity from a discount store with her hair looking like a bird's nest. My grip tightened on my coffee mug. The ceramic felt like it might crack. She is 8 years old, mother. She has asthma. You left her in 30-degree weather. She ended up at a gas station with an inhaler. She could have died. Patricia waved her hand dismissively, as if she was shooing away a fly. Oh, stop being dramatic. She is fine. You always coddle her. That is why she is soft. If you had raised her with some standards, she would have known better than to show up unannounced. This house has standards, Nia. We are not running a shelter here. We are maintaining a legacy. When you walk through those doors, you represent this family. If you cannot look the part, you do not get to play the part. I was about to respond when the camera moved. Someone took the phone from my mother's hand. Suddenly, the screen was filled with a face that made my stomach turn. It was Tiffany, my sister-in-law. Tiffany is white. She has blonde hair, blue eyes, and a smile that does not quite reach them. She married my brother Darius 3 years ago, and ever since then she has appointed herself the guardian of the Williams family reputation. She was wearing a diamond necklace that looked suspiciously familiar, but I pushed that thought aside for a moment. She tilted her head to the side, giving me a look of pity that was dripping with condescension. Hi, Nia. Hi. She said, her voice soft and sweet like poisoned honey. Look, I took the phone because I think you and Mom are just missing each other here. I wanted to explain because I do not think you understand the pressure we are under. I sat back in my chair. I crossed my arms. This was going to be good. A white woman was about to explain my own family dynamics to me. Go ahead, Tiffany, explain it to me. She sighed dramatically. You know, Nia, in our culture appearance is everything. I blinked. Our culture. She had been in this family for 3 years, and she was lecturing me about black culture. She continued oblivious to my silence. When we are at this level of society, we have to work twice as hard to get half as much respect. You know that saying, right? Well, Darius and I are building a brand. We are trying to show the world black excellence. And when Zola showed up looking so unpolished, it really hurt the image we are trying to project. We were all very embarrassed. It looked like we do not take care of our own. I almost laughed. It was a dark, bitter laugh caught in my throat. So let me get this straight, Tiffany. To show the world that we take care of our own, you locked your niece out in the cold. Tiffany frowned. You are twisting my words. I am just saying that there is a time and a place. If you cannot afford to dress her appropriately for a black tie event, then maybe you should have kept her at home. I mean, I know things are tight for you since the divorce, but surely you can afford a comb. The audacity was breathtaking. Here was a woman who had never worked a day in her life, lecturing me, a forensic auditor who owns her own home, about finances. But before I could eviscerate her, the camera moved again. Darius leaned into the frame. My younger brother, the golden child. He looked hungover. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was wearing a silk pajama set that matched Tiffany's. Get off her back, Nia, Darius snapped. Tiffany is right. You are always trying to bring us down. You are just jealous. Jealous, I repeated calmly. Jealous of what, Darius? Jealous of our success. He spat the word out. You are mad because mom and dad treat us with respect. You are mad because we are actually doing something with the family name. You are just a glorified accountant, Nia. I am an entrepreneur. I am building generational wealth. Tiffany and I are launching a new crypto consultancy next month. We are going to be billionaires. And you are just bitter because you are sitting in that little house all alone while we are living the life. I looked at him. I really looked at him. I saw the fear behind his eyes. I remembered the bank statements I had printed out the night before. The $50,000 transferred to Tifdari Consulting. The withdrawals for luxury cars. The drain on the trust fund. He wasn't building an empire. He was building a house of cards using stolen money. And he was terrified that the wind was about to blow. Is that so, Darius? I asked, my voice dangerously low. You are building generational wealth using your own money, I assume. He blinked. He looked nervous for a split second before masking it with arrogance. Of course it is my money. I made a killing in the market last quarter. Not that you would understand high finance. Tiffany chimed in, wrapping her arm around his neck. Exactly. Darius is a genius. That is why mom and dad trust him with the estate planning. They know he has the vision. You just have a calculator, Naya. We have a vision. She smiled at the camera again, a shark showing its teeth. So honestly, Naya, you should be thanking us. We saved Zola from embarrassing herself. Maybe next year, if you save up enough money, you can buy her a nice dress, and we can try again. But for now, please let us enjoy our Christmas. We have brunch reservations at the club. My mother's voice came from the background. Tell her to stop calling. She is ruining the vibe. Tiffany nodded. You heard, Mom. Bye, Nia. Merry Christmas. Try not to be so bitter. It gives you wrinkles. The screen went black. I stared at my reflection in the dark phone screen. They thought they had won. They thought they had put me in my place. They thought I was the jealous, poor relation who could be dismissed with a wave of a manicured hand. They had no idea. I put the phone down and picked up the stack of papers on the counter. Darius said he made a killing in the market. The bank statement said he withdrew $40,000 from Big Mama's healthcare fund on Tuesday. Tiffany said they were protecting the family image. The credit card statements showed she spent $12,000 on a Chanel bag using the card meant for emergency home repairs. They were not just mean, they were criminals. And the best part was, they had just confessed their motive. They did it for the image. They did it for the brand. I stood up. The coffee was cold, but my blood was boiling. I walked over to the whiteboard in my kitchen. Usually I use it for grocery lists. Today I uncapped a red marker. I wrote 3 names: Patricia, Darius, Tiffany. Next to Patricia's name I wrote child endangerment. Next to Darius's name I wrote embezzlement. Next to Tiffany's name I wrote accessory to fraud. I stepped back and looked at the board. Tiffany was right about one thing. Appearance is everything. And right now they appeared to be successful, wealthy, untouchable socialites. But an audit does not care about appearances. An audit cares about truth. My phone pinged. It was a text from Mr. Jenkins, the lawyer. The text read, "The judge just signed the emergency order. Big Mama is ready when you are." I looked at the clock. It was 10 in the morning. They said they had brunch reservations at the club. That meant the house would be empty for at least 2 hours. Perfect. I did not need to scream. I did not need to fight them on the phone. I needed to go to that house. Not to join the party, but to secure the crime scene. I went upstairs to wake up Zola. She was sitting up in bed rubbing her eyes. "Mommy," she asked, "are we going to Grandma's house?" I sat down on the bed and brushed her hair. "Yes, baby. We are going to Grandma's house, but not to eat. We are going to get something that belongs to us." Zola looked worried, but Grandma said I wasn't allowed in. I smiled. A real, genuine smile for the first time in 24 hours. "Grandma does not make the rules anymore, Zola. Big Mama makes the rules, and Big Mama says the door is wide open." I went to my closet. I did not put on a ball gown. I put on my best tailored suit, the one I wear when I have to tell a CEO that he is going to prison. I put on my heels, I pulled my hair back into a tight bun. I looked in the mirror. I did not see a victim. I saw the executioner. Tiffany wanted black excellence. I was about to show her exactly what that looks like. It looks like competence. It looks like justice. And it looks like a foreclosure notice taped to the front door. I grabbed my briefcase. Inside were the bank statements, the video file, and the freshly signed court order giving me full temporary custody of the estate. I walked downstairs holding Zola's hand. "Let's go," I said. We got into the car. I turned the ignition. The engine purred. I drove toward Buckhead, toward the iron gates, toward the lie. The silence was over. The audit had officially begun. And unlike my brother's crypto investments, this payoff was guaranteed. The Golden Oak Assisted Living Facility does not smell like a nursing home. It smells like lavender and old money. The floors are marble, and the staff wear uniforms that look like they were tailored in Paris. This is where my parents put Big Mama Hattie 3 years ago. They claimed it was because she needed specialized care after her stroke. But I know the truth. They put her here because they wanted her out of the way so they could play king and queen in her castle. I walked through the automatic glass doors, holding Zola's hand. Zola was quiet. She was intimidated by the silence of the place. I squeezed her hand. I needed her to see this. I needed her to see where the real power in our family comes from. We took the elevator to the penthouse suite. That is right. Big Mama does not have a room. She has a suite. I knocked on door 404. "Come in." The voice was raspy but strong. It commanded attention even through solid wood. We entered. Big Mama Hattie was sitting in her wheelchair by the window overlooking the Atlanta skyline. She is 90 years old. Her left side is paralyzed from the stroke, so her left hand rests motionless on her lap. But her right hand was gripping her cane like a scepter. And her eyes. Her eyes were sharp, clear, and terrifyingly intelligent. She turned her head. When she saw Zola, her face softened for a fraction of a second. "Come here, baby," she said to Zola. Zola ran over and hugged her carefully. Big Mama kissed her forehead, then looked up at me. The softness vanished. "Why are you here, Nia? It is Christmas morning. You should be eating grits and opening presents. Why do you look like you are ready to kill someone?" I did not waste time with pleasantries. Big Mama hates small talk. She built a multi-million-dollar hair care empire in the 1960s when black women were not supposed to own anything. She respects directness. I pulled out my tablet. "I have something to show you, Big Mama. It happened last night." I placed the tablet on her lap. I pressed play on the video. The room was silent except for the sound of the video. The sound of my mother's voice. The sound of the wind. The sound of the door slamming. I watched Big Mama's face. She did not blink. She did not gasp. She watched the footage with the intensity of a judge reviewing evidence. She watched her own daughter Patricia turn away her own great-granddaughter. When the video ended, the screen went black. Big Mama sat there for a long time. She looked out the window. Her breathing was steady. Then she spoke. Her voice was low and dangerous. "Patricia did that." "Yes, ma'am," I answered. "And Calvin stood there and let her." "Yes, ma'am. And that white girl Tiffany." She was laughing. "Yes, ma'am." Big Mama tapped her cane on the floor. Once, twice. It sounded like a gavel. She reached for the phone on her side table. She picked up the receiver and held it out to me. "Call Jenkins. Put it on speaker. Mr. Jenkins has been Big Mama's attorney for 40 years. He knows where every skeleton is buried because he helped dig the graves." The phone rang. "Hattie." Jenkins answered immediately. "Merry Christmas." "Cut the niceties, Jenkins." Big Mama snapped. "We have a breach." I listened as Mr. Jenkins went silent. He knew that tone. "Explain it to Nia," Big Mama said, pointing a finger at me. "Explain to my granddaughter exactly who owns that house in Buckhead." Jenkins cleared his throat. "Nia, are you there?" "I am here, Mr. Jenkins." "Okay. Here is the situation. Your parents, Calvin and Patricia, do not own the estate. They do not own the cars. They do not own the art on the walls. I nodded even though he could not see me. I suspected this. Jenkins continued. When Hattie had her stroke, we placed all assets into the Hattie Mae Williams Revocable Trust. Your parents were named as trustees. That means they are managers. They are allowed to live in the house and use the funds solely for the maintenance of the estate and the care of the family. Big Mama interrupted. Tell her about Clause 4B, the safety clause. Right, Jenkins said. Clause 4B is very specific. It states that the primary purpose of the trust is to provide a sanctuary for the direct blood descendants of Hattie Mae Williams. It explicitly states that if any trustee takes action that endangers the physical safety or emotional well-being of a blood heir, their status as trustee is automatically revoked. I looked at Big Mama. A smile touched the corner of her mouth. Leaving an 8-year-old child outside in freezing temperatures without transportation constitutes endangerment. Jenkins said, his voice firm. It is a direct violation of the trust. Big Mama leaned forward. Which means, Jenkins finished. You have the legal right to remove them from the property. Immediately. You can strip them of their access to the bank accounts. You can take the keys. You can evict them. I felt a surge of triumph. This was it. This was the weapon I needed. I looked at Big Mama. Let's do it, I said. Let's go over there right now. I want to see the look on Patricia's face when we kick her out. Big Mama looked at me. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. I was confused. No. But Big Mama, they could hurt Zola again. They are stealing your money. We have to stop them. Big Mama raised her hand. Her good hand. Nia, you are smart, but you are impatient. You play checkers. I play chess. She turned her wheelchair so she was facing me directly. If we go there now, what happens? It is Christmas morning. They are alone. We kick them out. They cry. They beg. It is a private affair. Nobody sees it. They can spin the story later. They can tell their friends at the club that I went senile. They can tell the church that you manipulated me. They will play the victim. She paused, letting the words sink in. My parents are masters of spin. She was right. If we did this quietly, they would find a way to survive it. We are not going to do this today, Big Mama said. Jenkins. She barked at the phone. When is the next big event at the house? Jenkins checked his calendar. They are hosting the New Year's Eve gala on Saturday. It is a black tie event. They have invited the entire Chamber of Commerce. Darius is supposed to receive some award. Big Mama nodded. Her eyes glittered with a cold, hard light. Perfect. She looked at me. Nia, you want to hurt them? I understand that. But I do not want to just hurt them. I want to destroy the lie. She gestured to the window toward the city. They care about their reputation more than they care about my blood. They care about that house more than they care about this child. So we are going to let them think they have won. We are going to let them have their party. We are going to let them put on their tuxedos and their stolen diamonds. We are going to let them stand on that stage and brag about their perfect family. And then, Big Mama whispered, we are going to cut the legs off the table. She turned back to the phone. Jenkins, prepare the eviction notice. Prepare the freeze on the assets. But do not serve them yet. I want the police ready. I want the forensic accounting report finalized. Yes, Hattie, Jenkins said. And Jenkins, Big Mama added. Make sure you have a server ready to deliver the papers at exactly 11:30 p.m. on New Year's Eve. I stared at her. That was brutal. That was public execution. Big Mama looked at Zola, who was playing quietly with a doll in the corner. They closed the door on her, she said softly. So I am going to close the door on them. And I am going to make sure the whole world hears the lock click. She looked back at me. Go home, Nia. Let them enjoy their brunch. Let Tiffany buy another bag. Let Darius think he is a genius. Give them enough rope. I understood. I stood up. I felt a different kind of power now. It was not just anger, it was strategy. Thank you, Big Mama, I said. She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was iron. You are the trustee now, Nia. You are the head of this family. Do not let me down. I won't. I promised. I took Zola's hand and we walked out of the suite. As the elevator doors closed, I checked my phone. I had a text from Tiffany. A photo of her and Darius clinking mimosa glasses at the country club with the caption, "Living our best life." #blessed. I did not reply. I just smiled. Enjoy the champagne, Tiffany. It is the last drink you will ever put on Big Mama's tab. The trap is set. Now we wait. The drive back from the nursing home was silent. My daughter Zola was in the back seat watching a movie on her iPad wearing headphones. She was safe. She was distracted. That was good because I needed absolute focus. When we got home, I set Zola up in the living room with popcorn and her favorite blankets. Then I walked into my home office and locked the door. I sat down at my desk. It is a large mahogany desk that I bought with my first big bonus check 5 years ago. My parents hated it. They said it was too masculine. They said a woman should have a delicate writing desk. But I do not write love letters. I hunt criminals. I need a workspace that can handle the weight of the truth. I opened my laptop. I turned on my 2 extra monitors. I brewed a fresh pot of black coffee. The steam rose up and disappeared into the air just like the money my family had been stealing. I cracked my knuckles. It was time to go to work. I logged into the secure banking portal for the Hattie Mae Williams Trust. The cursor blinked on the screen waiting for a command. I entered my credentials. Access granted. The screen filled with rows and columns of numbers. To most people, this looks like a headache. To me, it looks like a story. Every number is a character. Every transaction is a plot twist. And I was about to read the most expensive tragedy ever written. I started with the operating account. This is the account meant for the upkeep of the estate, utility bills, landscaping, property taxes. I filtered the search results for the last 12 months. At first glance, everything looked normal. There were payments to the electric company, payments to the water department. But a forensic auditor does not look at the first glance. We look at the patterns. I noticed a recurring payment to a vendor called Greenleaf Maintenance, $3,000 a month for landscaping. That seemed high but not impossible for an estate that size. But then I looked closer at the dates. The payments were processed on the 1st of the month, but there were additional payments processed on the 15th. Same vendor, same amount. I clicked on the digital image of the cashed check for the 15th. It was endorsed on the back. But not by a landscaping company. It was deposited into a personal checking account. I ran the routing number. It belonged to a local bank branch in Buckhead. I cross-referenced the account number with my family file. I have the account numbers for everyone because I set up their direct deposits years ago. The account did not belong to a gardener. It belonged to Darius Williams. My brother was charging the estate double for landscaping and pocketing $3,000 a month. That is $36,000 a year. That is a brand new car. I felt a flash of anger, but I pushed it down. $36,000 was petty cash. Darius was greedy, but he was also lazy. He would not stop there. He would want a bigger score. I went to the capital improvements folder. This is where the big money moves. This is for major repairs like foundation work or new HVAC systems. I sorted by amount, highest to lowest. My eyes stopped on a transaction from October 14th, $212,000. The memo line read, "Emergency slate roof replacement." I leaned back in my chair. $200,000. I was at the estate for Thanksgiving. I remember looking at the house. The roof is original slate. It is beautiful. It was in perfect condition. There were no tarps. There were no construction trucks. There was no scaffolding. I clicked on the vendor details. TD Structural Solutions, LLC. It sounded professional. It sounded legitimate. I opened a new tab on my browser. I went to the Georgia Secretary of State website. I searched for the business entity, TD Structural Solutions. The results loaded in less than a second. The business was incorporated on October 1st, exactly 2 weeks before the check was cut. I scrolled down to the registered agent. I expected to see a lawyer or a contractor. I saw a name that made me laugh out loud in the empty room. Tiffany Davis Williams, my sister-in-law. The woman who lectured me about culture and image. The woman who claimed to be a sophisticated socialite. She was so arrogant she did not even use a shell company. She used her own name, Tiff Dari. Tiffany and Darius. They created a fake construction company. They billed the trust for a roof that never existed, and they transferred $200,000 of Big Mama's money straight into their pockets. I printed the document. The printer whirred to life. It was a satisfying sound, like a judge's gavel coming down. But I was not done. If they were stealing this much from the house account, what were they doing with the discretionary spending? My parents have an American Express black card issued by the trust. It is supposed to be for travel related to estate business or medical emergencies for Big Mama. I pulled up the credit card statements. It was a catalog of narcissism. July 4th, Four Seasons Hotel Miami. $12,000. August 12th. Gucci Atlanta. $4,000. September. A charge for VIP bottle service at a club called Rain. $5,000. My parents do not go to clubs. This was Darius. And then I saw the most recent charge. It was dated 3 days ago. December 22nd. Tiffany and Company. $52,000. I froze. I remembered the FaceTime call from this morning. I remembered the way the light caught the diamond necklace Tiffany was wearing. I remembered how she touched it when she told me I was jealous of their success. She was wearing the evidence around her neck. She stole $50,000 from a woman lying in a nursing home to buy herself a necklace to wear to a party where she bragged about her wealth. This was not just embezzlement. This was evil. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I stood up and walked to the window. I needed to look outside. I needed to remind myself that there was a real world out there where people worked for a living, where people had morals. My parents knew about this. They had to. They were the primary trustees. They saw the statements. Either they were completely incompetent, or they were getting a kickback. I went back to the computer. I checked my parents' personal accounts. And there it was. Every month, a transfer of $5,000 came from the Tiff Dari account into my mother's personal savings. Hush money. Darius and Tiffany were stealing the big chunks and paying my mother a monthly allowance to look the other way. They were all in on it. The whole perfect family was a criminal enterprise. I looked at the total at the bottom of my spreadsheet. In the last 2 years, they had drained $450,000 from the trust. That money was meant for Zola's college fund. It was meant for Big Mama's medical care. It was meant to preserve the legacy of a woman who scrubbed floors and built a business from nothing. And they spent it on bottle service and handbags. I hit the print button again. I printed the bank statements. I printed the Secretary of State filing. I printed the credit card receipts. I printed the copies of the cashed checks with Darius's signature on the back. The stack of paper grew higher. It was thick. It was heavy. I picked up a red folder. I labeled it The Truth. I placed every document inside. I felt a shift inside me. When I woke up this morning, I was hurt. I was a rejected daughter. I was a protective mother. But sitting here surrounded by the evidence of their greed, I was no longer just a family member. I was the auditor, and the audit was complete. I picked up my phone. I dialed the local precinct. I asked for the Financial Crimes Division. I have a contact there, a detective named Miller who helped me with a case last year involving a corrupt CEO. Miller, I said when he answered. Nia. He sounded surprised. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Miller. I need a favor. I need you to be on standby for New Year's Eve. He laughed. You planning a wild party? No. I said, staring at the red folder. I am planning a bust. I have evidence of wire fraud, embezzlement, and elder financial abuse. The total is over 400,000. Miller's tone changed instantly. Who is the target? My brother, my sister-in-law, and my parents. There was a silence on the line. Then Miller spoke. You are arresting your own parents. I looked at the picture of Zola on my desk. The one where she is smiling with her 2 puffballs. The child they left in the cold. They are not my parents, Miller. They are suspects, and I am serving them up on a silver platter. I hung up. I looked at the clock. It was 2 in the afternoon. The hard part was over. The evidence was secured. Now comes the fun part. The performance. I need to get into that party. I need to get on that stage. And I need to make sure that when the clock strikes midnight, their carriage turns back into a pumpkin. I closed my laptop. I walked out to the living room. Zola was asleep on the sofa. I kissed her forehead. Sleep tight, baby. Mommy just bought the bank. The folder on my desk was heavy. It contained the financial autopsy of my family. Bank statements, credit card receipts, fake invoices. It was enough evidence to put my brother and sister-in-law in prison for 10 years. But evidence is useless if you cannot serve it. I needed to get into that house. I needed to get past the gate. And most importantly, I needed to get them all in one room with nowhere to run. I looked at the invitation on my refrigerator. It was heavy cardstock with gold foil lettering. The Williams Family New Year's Eve Gala, celebrating Black excellence and the future of business. It was a ticket to a crime scene. My mother had uninvited me during our last call. She had made it clear that I was persona non grata. If I just showed up, the security guards at the gate would turn me away. They would make a scene. My parents would play the victim. They would say I was the crazy, estranged daughter crashing their elegant evening. I could not let that happen. I needed to be invited back. I needed them to open the door for me. I took a deep breath. I am a forensic auditor, but today I had to be an actress. I had to swallow my pride. I had to lower my head. I had to pretend that they had won. I picked up my phone. I dialed my mother's number. She answered on the 4th ring. Her voice was sharp and impatient. What is it, Nia? I am meeting with the florists. The white roses are wilting and I am in no mood for your drama. I forced my voice to tremble slightly. I forced myself to sound small. Mom, I said. I am calling to apologize. There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was savoring the moment. She was letting the words hang in the air like perfume. Patricia let out a long sigh. Well, it is about time. I continued, sticking to the script I had rehearsed in my head. You were right, Mom. I was stressed from work. I was tired from the flight. I overreacted about Zola. I know how important image is to you. I should not have snapped at you and Tiffany, Patricia hummed. A sound of validation. She loved being right more than she loved her own children. I am glad you finally realized that, Nia. You know we only want what is best for the family. We have standards to maintain. When you act out like that, you make us all look bad, especially with Darius doing so well. We cannot have a loose cannon. I gripped the edge of my desk until my knuckles turned white. I know, Mom, I said. That is why I am calling. I want to come to the gala tomorrow night. I want to fix things. I want to support Darius. Patricia hesitated. I could hear her tapping her nails against her phone screen. I do not know, Nia. Tiffany is still very upset. You really hurt her feelings. She thinks you are jealous of her. She thinks you do not respect her place in this family. I closed my eyes. Respect her place. Her place was in a jail cell. I understand, I said. Is she there? Can I talk to her? Hold on, Patricia said. I heard the phone being passed. I heard muffled whispering. Then came the voice that made my skin crawl. Hello, Nia. Tiffany's voice was dripping with false sweetness. It was the voice of a woman who thinks she has already won the war. Hi, Tiffany, I said. I wanted to tell you I am sorry. I was out of line yesterday. You and Darius are doing big things and I should have been more supportive. Tiffany let out a little laugh. It was a cold sound. I appreciate that, Nia. I really do. It takes a big person to admit when they are jealous. Darius and I know that it must be hard for you. You are single. You are working a corporate job. And here we are building an empire. It is natural to feel left behind. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. She was talking about an empire built on stolen roof repair funds. You are right, Tiffany, I said through gritted teeth. I was jealous, but I want to make it right. I want to come to the party. Tiffany went quiet. I could feel her smiling on the other end of the line. I could feel her calculating how much humiliation she could extract from this moment. Well, she said slowly, an apology over the phone is nice, Nia, but the disrespect was very public. You yelled at us. You insulted the family brand. If you want to come to the party, I think you need to make a real gesture. What kind of gesture? I asked, playing the pawn. I think you should apologize at the party, Tiffany said. Her voice was giddy with power. During the toasts, after Darius accepts his award, I want you to take the microphone. I want you to tell everyone how proud you are of us, and I want you to admit that you were wrong to question our success. She wanted a public execution of my dignity. She wanted me to kneel and kiss the ring in front of the mayor and the bishop and the Chamber of Commerce. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. She was handing me the microphone. She was giving me the stage. She thought I was going to sing her praises. She had no idea I was going to read her Miranda rights. I paused for effect. I let her think I was struggling with the decision. Okay, Tiffany, I said softly. If that is what it takes to be part of the family, I will do it. Good, Tiffany said. That is very mature of you, Nia. We will save a seat for you. But not at the head table, obviously. That is for the honorees. You can sit with the cousins near the back. Thank you, Tiffany, I said. My mother came back on the line. Okay, Nia. Since Tiffany is gracious enough to forgive you, you can come. But there is one condition. I knew this was coming. What is it, Mom? Do not bring Zola. The air left the room. Even though I expected it, the cruelty still felt like a physical blow. Patricia continued, her voice devoid of any grandmotherly warmth. This is a high-profile night, Nia. Essence magazine is sending a photographer. The Atlanta Business Chronicle will be there. Darius is receiving the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. We cannot have distractions. Zola is sweet, but she is unpredictable. And frankly, her asthma cough is disruptive. We need perfection tonight. I looked at the photo of Zola on my desk. They were not excluding her because of her cough. They were excluding her because she did not fit the aesthetic. They wanted lighter skin. They wanted straighter hair. They wanted a prop, not a child. And the award, the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. I knew for a fact that this award was sponsored by a nonprofit that Darius had donated $10,000 to last month using Big Mama's money. He bought his own trophy. I took a deep breath. I will not bring her. I lied. I had no intention of leaving Zola behind. She was coming. She was going to see this. She needed to see the dragon being slain so she would never be afraid of it again. Good, Patricia said. Wear something appropriate, Nia. Try to look like you belong to this family for once. Wear that red dress I bought you 3 years ago. The one that covers your arms. I looked down at the sleek black designer suit I had already laid out on my bed. The suit that said, I am not here to play. I am here to work. I will look my best, Mom. I promised. See you at 7. Do not be late, and do not embarrass us. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. My hand was shaking, not from fear but from adrenaline. They took the bait. They swallowed it whole. Tiffany thinks she has broken me. She thinks she is going to watch me grovel on stage. She thinks she is going to get the ultimate ego boost. She is right about one thing. I am going to make a toast. But I am not raising a glass to their success. I am raising the gavel on their crimes. I walked over to the window. The sun was setting on the last day of the year. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Usually New Year's Eve is about looking forward, but tomorrow night we are going to look back. We are going to look at every stolen dollar, every fake invoice, every lie. I picked up the red folder. The weight of it felt good in my hands. Tiffany wants a show. She wants drama. She wants a public spectacle. I smiled, a cold, sharp smile that did not reach my eyes. Be careful what you wish for, Tiffany, because I am going to give you the performance of a lifetime. And when the curtain falls, you won't be bowing. You will be handcuffed. I went into the living room. Zola was building a Lego castle on the floor. "Mommy," she asked, looking up, "did you talk to Grandma?" I sat down on the floor next to her. I picked up a Lego brick. "Yes, baby, I did." "Is she still mad?" "Number 1," I said, snapping the brick into place. "She is not mad anymore. She is expecting us." Zola looked worried. "Do I have to stay outside again?" I pulled her close. I hugged her tight. "Never again, Zola. Tomorrow night you are walking through the front door, and you are going to walk in like you own the place. Because after tomorrow night, baby girl, you actually will." I looked at the castle Zola was building. It was tall and strong. My parents' castle was built on sand, and the tide was coming in. I checked my watch. 24 hours until showtime. I have work to do. I need to call Detective Miller. I need to call Mr. Jenkins. And I need to write a speech. Tiffany wants an apology. I will give her one. I am sorry I did not catch you sooner. End of part 6. I pulled up to the iron gates of my parents' estate at 3 in the afternoon on New Year's Eve. The sun was already starting to dip low, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. The driveway was packed with white vans, caterers, florists, valet companies setting up their podiums. It looked like a coronation. And in a way, it was. Tonight was supposed to be the night my brother Darius was crowned the king of Atlanta business. I parked my car next to a delivery truck. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. My briefcase was in the passenger seat. Inside was the red folder containing the end of their world. But right now, I had to play the role of the repentant daughter. I had to walk into that house and smile at the people who were robbing my grandmother blind. I stepped out of the car. The air smelled of expensive lilies and roasting meat. I walked up the stone steps. The front door was propped open with a heavy brass stop. Workers were carrying in crates of champagne. I walked into the foyer. I stopped. I had grown up in this house. I knew every creak in the floorboards. I knew the smell of the old cedar closet. But as I stood in the entryway, I felt like a stranger. The house had been sanitized. My mother used to have a beautiful collection of African art in the hallway. Hand-carved statues from Ghana, masks from Nigeria. They were pieces that Big Mama Hattie had collected during her travels in the 70s. They were dark and powerful, and they told the story of where we came from. They were gone. In their place were abstract paintings. Beige, gold, cream, meaningless shapes that matched the new rug. I walked into the living room. The grand piano was still there, but the family photos that used to sit on top of it were missing. There used to be a photo of Big Mama receiving her first business license. There used to be a photo of my grandfather in his military uniform. Now there were only photos of Darius and Tiffany. Darius on a boat. Tiffany in Paris. Darius and Tiffany laughing in black and white. It was a shrine to their vanity. They had erased the history of the family to make room for the brand. I felt a tightness in my chest. This was not just redecorating. This was cultural eviction. Tiffany was slowly scrubbing the blackness out of the Williams legacy and replacing it with a Pinterest aesthetic. I heard laughter coming from upstairs. It was a high-pitched laugh that grated on my nerves. Tiffany. I walked up the winding staircase. The carpet was thick and plush under my feet. I walked down the hall toward the master bedroom. The door was open. My mother was not there. But Tiffany was. She was standing in front of the full-length antique mirror. She was wearing a silk robe that was slipping off her shoulder. She was holding a glass of champagne in one hand, but my eyes did not stop at the champagne. They stopped at her neck. Around her neck was a double strand of black pearls. My breath caught in my throat. Those were not just any pearls. Those were Big Mama Hattie's South Sea pearls. They were legendary in our family. Big Mama bought them for herself in 1968 after she secured the loan for her first factory. No bank would lend to a black woman back then, so she went to a private investor and charmed him. Those pearls represented her independence. They represented her blood and sweat. Big Mama kept them in a safe deposit box. She only wore them for weddings and funerals. She had told me once that they were reserved for the matriarch of the family, and now they were draped around the neck of a woman who had never worked a hard day in her life. I stepped into the room. "Hello, Tiffany." She jumped slightly and spun around. When she saw it was me, her face relaxed into a smirk. "Oh, hi Nia, you are early. The help is still setting up downstairs." I ignored the insult. I pointed at her neck. "Those are Big Mama's pearls." Tiffany reached up and touched the gems. She ran her fingers over them possessively. "Aren't they stunning? I found them in the safe in the closet. I thought they would go perfectly with my dress tonight. It is a vintage theme, you know." I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. "Tiffany, those are not costume jewelry. Those are heirlooms. Big Mama has not given them to anyone. You need to take them off." Tiffany took a sip of her champagne. She looked me up and down. "Relax, Nia, you are so uptight. Big Mama is in a home. She does not even know what day it is. She is never going to wear these again. Why should they gather dust in a box when they can be seen on me? I am honoring her. You are stealing from her." I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Just like you stole the money for the roof. Just like you stole the money for your necklace." Tiffany's eyes narrowed. The sweet mask slipped for a second. "Excuse me. You heard me. Take them off, Tiffany. They do not belong to you. You have to earn those pearls." Tiffany laughed. It was a cruel sound. "Earn them? How? By slaving away in an office like you. By being bitter and lonely. No thanks. I earned my place in this family by marrying the heir. Darius is going to control everything soon anyway. The old lady is on her last legs. Whether she dies next week or next year, it is all going to be ours eventually. I am just getting a head start on my inheritance." She stepped closer to me. The smell of her expensive perfume was suffocating. "And let's be honest, Nia, even if she gave them to you, they wouldn't look right. You do not have the elegance to carry them off. These pearls need a spotlight. You are happier in the shadows." I wanted to rip them off her neck. My hands twitched, but I stopped myself. Violence is not the answer. Evidence is the answer. I looked at the doorway. My father, Calvin, was standing there. He was wearing his tuxedo trousers and an undershirt. He looked tired. "Dad," I said, not taking my eyes off Tiffany. "Tell her to take off Big Mama's pearls. You know what those mean. You know Big Mama would never allow this." Calvin looked at me. Then he looked at Tiffany. Tiffany pouted. She looked at my father with big, innocent eyes. "Dad, tell her to leave me alone. I just wanted to look nice for Darius's big night. Why is she always trying to ruin everything?" Calvin sighed. He rubbed his forehead. "Nia, let it go." I turned to him slowly. "Let it go." "Yes. Just let it go. It is a special occasion. Tiffany is the hostess tonight. She should look the part. Mom said it was okay. We do not need a fight right now. The catering manager is asking for more money and the florist is late. I do not have time for your petty jealousies. Petty jealousies." He was calling the desecration of his own mother's legacy a petty jealousy. He was afraid of her. My father, the deacon, the businessman, was afraid of his white daughter-in-law because she held the keys to his social status. He knew she controlled Darius, and Darius controlled the illusion of their wealth. He was not a man anymore. He was a husk. I looked at him. I felt the last tiny thread of attachment I had to him snap. "Okay, Dad," I said. I looked back at Tiffany. She was grinning. She thought she had won. She thought she had put the dog back in its kennel. "You keep them, Tiffany," I said. "Wear them tonight. Make sure everyone sees them." "I will," she said, turning back to the mirror. "Now, if you do not mind, I need to finish getting ready. Go find somewhere to sit downstairs, and try not to get in the way of the staff." I walked out of the room. I walked down the hall past the empty spaces where the ancestors used to hang. I walked down the stairs. I did not go sit in the corner. I walked out the front door and went back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and pulled out my phone. I called Detective Miller. "Miller," I said. "Yeah, Nia. Add grand larceny to the list. I want a separate warrant for Tiffany Williams. She is in possession of stolen jewelry valued at over $50,000. "Got it," Miller said. "We are all set on this end. The squad cars are staged 2 blocks away. Just give us the signal." I hung up. I looked up at the window of the master bedroom. I could see Tiffany moving around. I could see the flash of the pearls around her neck. She was right about one thing. Those pearls did need a spotlight. And tonight, when the police lights hit them, they are going to shine brighter than she ever imagined. I started the car. I needed to go pick up Zola. I needed to pick up Big Mama. The stage was set. The villains were in costume. It was time to bring in the lead actors. I left the estate and drove straight to downtown Atlanta. The skyscrapers were beginning to light up against the twilight sky. To most people, these buildings represent commerce and business. To me, they represent accountability. I pulled into the parking garage of the pristine glass tower where Mr. Jenkins has his office. The office of Jenkins and Associates smells like mahogany and fear. It is the kind of place where fortunes are protected and enemies are dismantled legally. I walked past the receptionist who nodded at me with a look of recognition. She knew Big Mama. Everyone here knew Big Mama. And they knew that if her granddaughter was here on New Year's Eve, something major was going down. I entered the conference room. Mr. Jenkins was sitting at the head of a long table. He is 70 years old with silver hair and a suit that cost more than my brother's car. Beside him sat Detective Miller, the contact I had called earlier. The table was covered in paperwork. Jenkins did not smile. He did not offer me coffee. He simply slid a thick stack of documents toward me. "It is done, Nia," he said. His voice was gravelly and serious. I picked up the first document. It was a court order signed by a judge less than an hour ago. Emergency temporary restraining order and eviction notice. Jenkins explained. "We presented the evidence of elder abuse and financial endangerment to Judge Reynolds. Given the video footage of Zola being locked out in freezing temperatures and the bank records showing unauthorized withdrawals, the judge granted an immediate ex parte order." Ex parte. It means one-sided. It means we did not have to warn them. We did not have to give them a chance to defend themselves. The evidence was so damning that the law sided with us instantly. This document revokes Calvin and Patricia Williams' status as trustees effective immediately. Jenkins continued, pointing to the second paragraph. "It grants you, Nia Williams, sole temporary conservatorship of the Hattie Mae Williams estate." I ran my fingers over the embossed seal of the court. It felt like armor. "And this." Jenkins slid a second document across the polished wood. "This is the asset freeze order. As of 10 minutes ago, every bank account associated with the trust has been locked. The credit cards are dead, the checking accounts are frozen, even the investment accounts are inaccessible. If your brother tries to buy a pack of gum with the company card tonight, it will be declined." I felt a cold satisfaction. They were currently getting dressed for their big night, putting on tuxedos and gowns, thinking they were millionaires. In reality, they were penniless. They just did not know it yet. But we are not done. Jenkins turned to Detective Miller. Miller leaned forward. He looked like a man who was ready to work. He had my red folder open in front of him. Nia, Miller said, I have reviewed the files you sent. The forensic accounting is impeccable. You made my job very easy. He tapped the spreadsheet showing the roof repair fraud. This right here, the $200,000 wired to a shell company, this pushes it way past a misdemeanor. In the state of Georgia, theft over $25,000 is a felony. Theft over $100,000 involving a victim over the age of 65 carries a mandatory minimum sentence. He looked me in the eye. We are talking about racketeering charges, Nia. RICO. Conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and elder exploitation. If we convict, your brother and sister-in-law are looking at 10 to 20 years. Each. 10 to 20 years. I thought about Darius. I thought about how he used to follow me around when we were kids. I thought about how our parents spoiled him rotten until he became a monster who would steal from his own grandmother. Do you want to proceed? Miller asked. Once we execute this warrant, there is no going back. The district attorney will pick this up. You cannot drop the charges later just because you feel guilty. I thought about Zola shivering at the gas station. I thought about Tiffany wearing Big Mama's pearls. I thought about my mother saying, we have standards to maintain. Proceed, I said. Miller nodded. He pulled out a radio. Okay, here's the plan. We have 2 patrol cars and a plainclothes team stationed 2 blocks from the estate. We know there is a party tonight. We do not want to cause a panic, but we do want to secure the suspects before they can destroy any evidence or transfer any more funds. Number 1 interrupted. Miller and Jenkins looked at me. I do not want you to wait outside, I said. I want you to come in. Miller frowned. Nia, a raid during a party is messy. There will be civilians. There will be press. Exactly, I said. They care about their image more than anything. They use their image to hide their crimes. They use their reputation to silence me and abuse my daughter. I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the city. If we arrest them quietly, they will spin it. They will say it is a misunderstanding. They will say it is a family dispute. They will lie to the press. I turned back to them. I want the handcuffs to click while the cameras are flashing. I want the world to see who they really are. I want the mugshots to be the only thing people see when they search for the Williams family brand. Jenkins cracked a small smile. He looked at Miller. She is definitely Hattie's granddaughter. Miller sighed, but he was smiling too. Okay, we will do it your way. But we need a signal. We cannot just burst in. We need you to identify the suspects and ensure they are isolated from the crowd so nobody gets hurt. I will be on stage, I said. Tiffany asked me to make a toast. She wants me to publicly apologize to her. Miller laughed, a short bark of a laugh. You have got to be kidding me. I wish I was. She wants me to hand her the victory. So I will go up there. I will take the microphone. When I say the phrase, I am finally taking out the trash, I want you to come through those doors. Miller wrote it down. Taking out the trash. Copy that. We will be listening. Jenkins handed me a heavy envelope. This contains the physical copies of the eviction notice and the restraining order. Once the police have them in custody, you serve them with this. It gives them 60 minutes to vacate the premises under police supervision. I took the envelope. It was the final nail in the coffin. Thank you, gentlemen, I said. I walked out of the office. The elevator ride down felt like a descent into the arena. I was not nervous. I was focused. I felt sharp. I felt dangerous. I got into my car. The leather seat was cold. I checked my phone. I had a text from my mother. Make sure you are not late, and fix your hair. I deleted it. I decided to make one last call. I needed to hear a voice that was pure, a voice that was innocent. I called the landline at my house. Hello? Zola's voice answered. She sounded happy. She was probably watching cartoons. Hi, baby, I said. Mommy, are you coming home? Not yet, sweetie. Mommy has to go to the party. Remember, I am going to open the door for us. Oh, right, Zola said. Are you bringing me a piece of cake? I laughed. The sound surprised me. Yes, I will bring you the biggest piece of cake they have. Zola paused. Mommy? Yes, baby. Are you sad? You sound serious. I looked at the envelope on the passenger seat. I looked at the red folder. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were clear. My jaw was set. No, Zola. I am not sad. Then what are you doing? I started the engine. The car roared to life. I am taking out the trash, baby. I am just taking out the trash. Okay, Mommy. Love you. Love you too. I hung up. I put the car in gear. It was time. The drive to Buckhead usually takes 20 minutes. Tonight it felt like seconds. I pulled up to the gate. The security guard stopped me. He had a clipboard. Name? He asked. Nia Williams, I said. He scanned the list. He frowned. I do not see a Nia Williams here. Of course. My mother had left my name off the list at the gate just to make me beg one last time, just to make me call her so she could authorize my entry. It was a power play. I did not call her. I reached into my bag and pulled out the court order. I held it up to the window. You do not see my name on the guest list because I am not a guest, I said. I am the owner. The guard looked at the seal of the court. He looked at the signature. He looked at my face. He saw that I was not joking. He swallowed hard. Sorry, Ms. Williams. He stammered. The gate is opening now. The iron gate swung open. I drove up the long winding driveway. The house was lit up like a palace. There were expensive cars everywhere. There was music floating on the air. I parked my car right in front of the entrance, blocking the path of a Rolls-Royce. The valet ran over. Ma'am, you cannot park here. This is for VIPs only. I stepped out of the car. I smoothed my suit. I grabbed my briefcase. I tossed him the keys. Keep it close, I said. I will not be staying long, and neither will anyone else. I walked up the steps. I could hear the murmur of the crowd inside. I could hear the clinking of glasses. I reached for the door handle. This time nobody was going to close it in my face. I pushed the doors open and stepped into the light. Showtime. The double doors swung shut behind me, cutting off the cool night air. I was instantly enveloped in a world of golden light and suffocating warmth. The ballroom of the estate had been transformed. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, casting prisms of light onto the polished mahogany floors. A live jazz quartet was playing in the corner, smooth and unobtrusive, providing the soundtrack for the biggest lie of the year. I stood by the entrance for a moment, adjusting my eyes to the brightness. The room was packed. There were at least 200 people here, men in tuxedos holding cigars, women in floor-length gowns covered in sequins and feathers. Waiters moved through the crowd like ghosts, carrying silver trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was the picture of success. It was the image of the American dream painted in black. But I knew better. I knew that every bottle of champagne was bought with stolen money. I knew that the heating bill for this room was paid for by neglecting the woman who built this house. I looked toward the front of the room. There was a raised platform, a makeshift stage draped in white velvet. My parents were standing there. My father, Calvin, was holding a microphone. He looked distinguished. He looked like a patriarch. He had one hand in his pocket and the other gesturing expansively to the crowd. My mother, Patricia, stood beside him, beaming. She looked every inch the supportive matriarch, her smile plastered on tight enough to crack her foundation. Family, my father boomed, his voice amplified by the expensive sound system. Family is the bedrock of our community. It is the soil from which we grow. Without family, we are nothing. The crowd murmured in agreement. I saw heads nodding. I saw people raising their glasses. My father continued, We have built this legacy, not for ourselves, but for the future, for the next generation. And speaking of the future, I want to acknowledge my son Darius and his lovely wife Tiffany. The spotlight shifted. It swung to the side of the stage where Darius and Tiffany were standing. Darius puffed out his chest. He looked like a child playing dress-up in his father's clothes. He was grinning, waving at the crowd like a politician. And then there was Tiffany. She was wearing a gold dress that hugged every curve. It was flashy. It was loud. It was everything my mother usually hated, but tonight she allowed it because Tiffany represented the new money aesthetic they were so desperate to capture. And around her neck, gleaming under the stage lights, were the pearls. Big Mama's South Sea pearls. They looked heavy on her. They looked wrong. But the crowd did not know that. They just saw the shine. They are the future, my father announced. Darius has shown such vision, such drive. He is taking the Williams name to new heights. My mother took the microphone. Her voice was trembling with fake emotion. We are just so proud, she said. We are so blessed to have children who understand the value of hard work and integrity. Integrity. The word hung in the air like a bad smell. I started to walk into the room. I did not blend in. Everyone else was wearing black tie. The women were in gowns that swept the floor. I was wearing a bespoke black suit. It was tailored in Italy. The fabric was sharp, the lines were clean, and the silhouette was powerful. It was a suit designed for a boardroom, not a ballroom. To a fashion editor, I would have looked chic. To the Buckhead social set, I looked like a failure. I heard the whispers start as I moved through the crowd. Is that Nia? Why is she wearing pants? She looks like she came straight from the office. Maybe she could not afford a gown. I heard things have been tough for her since the divorce. I kept my head high. I did not look at them. I felt their eyes sliding over me, judging me, assessing my worth based on the fabric on my body. A woman I recognized, Mrs. Gable, leaned into her husband and whispered loud enough for me to hear. It is a shame, really. She used to be such a pretty girl. Now she just looks hard. Hard. Yes, I was hard. I was a diamond, and diamonds are used to cut glass. I made my way toward the bar. I needed a vantage point. I needed to be seen, but I did not want to engage. Not yet. I felt a hand on my arm. I turned. It was a cousin of mine on my father's side. Marcus. He was a nice guy, but spineless. Nia, he said, looking nervous. I did not think you were coming. Aunt Patricia said you were sick. I smiled at him. It was a thin smile. I made a miraculous recovery, Marcus. He looked at my suit. You look intense. Is everything okay? Everything is perfect, I said. Just watch the show, Marcus. I turned away from him. On stage, the speeches were winding down. My father was wrapping up. So tonight we celebrate. We celebrate success. We celebrate love. And we celebrate the bond that cannot be broken. The crowd applauded politely. Then Tiffany stepped forward. She took the microphone from my father. She signaled to the sound guy to cut the music. The room went silent. Tiffany loved a microphone. She loved the sound of her own voice. Thank you, Mom and Dad, she said, her voice breathy and sweet. Thank you for everything. Darius and I are so honored. She paused. She scanned the room. Her eyes were hunting. She was looking for me. I stepped out from behind a pillar. I let her see me. Her eyes locked onto mine. Her smile widened. It was the smile of a predator who thinks the trap has sprung. You know, she said into the mic, we talk a lot about family tonight. And family means forgiveness. Family means coming together even when we have differences. The crowd leaned in. They smelled drama. I see my sister-in-law Nia has joined us, Tiffany said. 200 heads turned in my direction. The spotlight swung around, blinding me for a second. I did not flinch. I did not shield my eyes. I stared straight into the light. Nia, Tiffany cooed. I am so glad you made it. I know you have had a hard time lately. I know you have been struggling with finding your place. She was doing it. She was painting the narrative right in front of everyone. She was making me the charity case, the black sheep. But we want you to know that we love you, Tiffany continued. And I know you wanted to say something. I know you wanted to clear the air. She gestured to the empty space on the stage next to her. Why don't you come up here, Nia? Come say a few words to your brother. Come tell the family how you feel. My mother looked terrified. She stepped forward and tried to grab the mic, but Tiffany pulled away. Come on, Nia, Tiffany goaded. Do not be shy. You told me on the phone you wanted to make a toast. Well, here is your chance. The crowd started to clap. It was a polite, pressured applause. They were urging me to the slaughter. I looked at Tiffany. She was glowing with triumph. She thought she was calling my bluff. She thought I would either run away in shame or come up there and mumble a humiliating apology. She thought she held all the cards. I set my briefcase down on a table next to me. I would not need the papers yet. I only needed my voice. I started walking toward the stage. I did not walk with my head down. I walked with the stride of a CEO entering a hostile takeover meeting. My heels clicked rhythmically on the hardwood floor. Click, click, click. The crowd parted for me. They moved aside like the Red Sea. They could feel the energy radiating off me. It was not shame, it was voltage. I walked up the stairs to the stage. I stood next to Tiffany. Up close, the pearls looked even more beautiful. And Tiffany looked even more fake. Her makeup was thick. Her perfume was cloying. She held out the microphone. Here you go, sweetie, she whispered off mic so only I could hear. Make it good, or never come back. I took the microphone. It was heavy in my hand. Cold metal. I looked out at the sea of faces. I saw the mayor. I saw the bishop. I saw the neighbors who had ignored me for years. I saw my parents standing behind me holding their breath, praying I would stick to the script. I looked at Detective Miller's contact standing by the back exit. He gave me a barely perceptible nod. I looked back at Tiffany. Thank you, Tiffany, I said. My voice was clear, steady. It did not shake. Thank you for inviting me up here. You are right. I did want to say a few words. I turned to the crowd. We are here to celebrate a legacy, I said. The Williams legacy. My parents just told you that this family is built on integrity. They told you that we stand for hard work. I paused. The room was so quiet, you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. But there is a difference between a legacy and a lie, I said. My mother gasped. I heard her heels click as she stepped toward me. Nia, stop. I did not stop. I raised my voice. My sister-in-law is wearing a necklace tonight, I said, pointing at Tiffany. Beautiful pearls. South Sea pearls. They belong to my grandmother, Hattie Williams, the woman who actually made the money you are all drinking tonight. Tiffany's smile faltered. She looked confused. This was not the apology she expected. She told me she is wearing them to honor Big Mama, I continued. But you cannot honor someone while you are robbing them. A gasp rippled through the room. Darius stepped forward. His face was turning red. Give me the mic, Nia. You are drunk. Get off the stage. I sidestepped him. I was faster. I was sharper. I am not drunk, Darius, I said. But you are. You are drunk on money that does not belong to you. I turned back to the crowd. I looked directly into the camera lens of the videographer who was hired to document the night. For the last 2 years, my brother and his wife have embezzled over $400,000 from my grandmother's trust fund, I said. Every word was a bullet. They set up fake companies. They forged invoices. They stole from a 90-year-old woman to buy the dress Tiffany is wearing right now. Liar, Tiffany screamed. She lunged for me. She was losing control. The mask of the perfect socialite shattered. She looks insane. Security, my father shouted. Get her out of here. 2 large security guards started moving toward the stage. I held up my hand. I am not done, I said. My voice boomed. Last night these people... My parents locked my 8-year-old daughter out of this house in the freezing cold because she did not look rich enough to be seen with them. They endangered her life to protect their image. The crowd was buzzing now. The shock was turning into chaos. "Well, I have news for you," I said. "The image is over. The party is over." I looked at Tiffany. She was trembling. She was clutching the pearls. "You wanted a toast, Tiffany," I said. "You wanted me to say how I feel." I took a deep breath. "I feel like it is time to clean house." I looked toward the back doors. I looked at Detective Miller. I said the words, the signal. "I am finally taking out the trash." The double doors at the back of the room burst open. Officer Miller walked in. Behind him were 6 uniformed police officers. The music stopped. The chatter stopped. The only sound was the heavy tread of police boots on the hardwood floor. Darius looked at the door. He looked at me. His face went pale. Tiffany dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the stage. I lowered the microphone. "Happy New Year," I whispered. The air in the ballroom was so thick you could choke on it. The police officers stood at the perimeter of the room, forming a wall of blue uniforms, but they did not move in to make the arrests yet. They waited. Detective Miller looked at me and gave a subtle nod. He knew that the legal takedown was important, but the social takedown had to come first. The handcuffs would take away their freedom, but the truth would take away their power. I turned my back to the stunned crowd and looked up at the massive projection screen behind the stage. For the last 2 hours, it had been cycling through a slideshow of Darius and Tiffany's lavish vacations. Photos of them in Paris, photos of them in Dubai, photos of the lie they had sold to everyone in this room. I reached into my blazer pocket. My fingers closed around the small remote control I had synced with the AV system when I arrived earlier that afternoon. I pressed the button. The lights in the ballroom flickered and died. The chandeliers went dark. The room plunged into a terrifying blackness. A murmur of panic rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a glass. A woman screamed softly. Then the screen flickered to life. It was not a professional photo. It was grainy footage. The timestamp in the corner read December 24th, 6:42 p.m. The audio boomed through the high-quality speakers usually reserved for jazz bands. The sound of wind howling, the sound of freezing rain hitting pavement. And then the image became clear. It was the front porch of this very house. The camera angle looked down on a small figure standing on the doormat. A little girl in a puffy pink coat holding a bag of gifts. The entire room gasped. It was a collective sound of horror. They recognized the coat. They recognized the pigtails. It was Zola. On the screen, the heavy oak door opened. My mother Patricia appeared. She was wearing the same gold gown she was wearing right now, standing 10 feet away from me on the stage. The audio was crisp. It was brutal. "What are you doing here, Zola?" "Merry Christmas, Grandma. I brought your presents." "Look at you. You look like a street urchin. This is a formal event, Zola." I watched the faces in the crowd. The mayor's jaw had dropped. The bishop was clutching his cross. Mrs. Gable, the woman who had called me hard earlier, had her hand over her mouth. They were watching a woman they considered a saint treat her own flesh and blood like garbage. The video continued. "I cannot have you running around looking like a charity case. It reflects poorly on the family. Goodbye, Zola. We will send you a plate later." The door on the screen slammed shut. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom like a gunshot. The screen went black. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then the whispers started. They started low and grew into a roar. "Did you see that?" She left the child in the cold. "That is evil. That is pure evil." My mother Patricia stood on the stage frozen. Her face was a mask of terror. She looked out at her friends, her neighbors, her admirers, and she saw the one thing she feared more than death. She saw their disgust. She reached out toward the crowd, her hands shaking. "It is a deep fake," she screeched. Her voice cracked. "It is AI. Nia made it up. She is trying to frame me." But nobody was listening to her. They were looking at the back of the room. The double doors swung open again. This time it was not the police. A spotlight from the tech booth cut through the darkness and hit the doorway. A low, mechanical hum filled the silence. Slowly, majestically, a wheelchair rolled into the room. Sitting in it was Hattie Mae Williams, Big Mama. She was dressed in a royal purple suit. Her silver hair was braided into a crown. Her paralyzed left hand rested on her lap, but her right hand gripped her cane with knuckles of steel. She did not look frail. She did not look like a nursing home patient. She looked like an empress returning to reclaim her throne. Behind her walked Mr. Jenkins carrying a briefcase. Big Mama did not look at the crowd. She kept her eyes locked on the stage, locked on her son Calvin and her daughter-in-law Patricia. The crowd parted for her instantly. People stepped back, bowing their heads out of instinct. They knew who really owned this city. They knew who really built this house. The only sound was the whir of her electric wheelchair as she moved down the center aisle. She stopped at the foot of the stage. She looked up. My father Calvin fell to his knees. He started to cry. A pathetic sobbing sound. "Mama," he blubbered. "Mama, please. Let me explain." Big Mama did not speak. She simply tapped her cane on the floor. "Someone hand me a microphone," she commanded. Her voice was not loud, but it carried to the back of the room. I walked to the edge of the stage and handed her my mic. Our fingers brushed. Her hand was warm. She lifted the microphone to her lips. She looked at the crowd first. "I apologize," she said. "I apologize that you had to witness the rot that has infected my house. I thought I raised children who understood the value of family. I see now that I failed." She turned her gaze back to the stage. "Patricia." My mother flinched as if she had been whipped. "Yes, Mama," she whispered. "You turned away my great-granddaughter. You left my blood out in the cold to protect your reputation." Big Mama's voice rose. It became thunder. "Well, look around you, Patricia. Look at your reputation now. It is in tatters. You traded your soul for a party, and now the party is over." She turned to Darius. "And you, my grandson, the entrepreneur." Darius was shaking his head, tears streaming down his face. "Big Mama, I did not know. It was not me." "Silence," Big Mama snapped. "I saw the roof, Darius. Or rather, I saw the roof that does not exist. I saw the bank transfers. I saw the diamonds around your wife's neck." Tiffany instinctively put her hand over the pearls, trying to hide them. "Take them off," Big Mama said. Her voice was ice cold. "Right now." Tiffany trembled. Her fingers fumbled with the clasp. She unhooked the pearls, and they slid into her hand. She stood there holding them, not knowing what to do. "Give them to Nia," Big Mama ordered. Tiffany walked over to me. Her eyes were full of hate, but she was powerless. She dropped the heavy pearls into my open hand. I held them up. They caught the light. The legacy was back where it belonged. Big Mama turned back to my parents. "Calvin, Patricia, you have spent 20 years living in my house, driving my cars and spending my money. You acted like royalty, but you forgot that a queen protects her people. You did not protect Zola. You threw her to the wolves." Big Mama took a deep breath. She looked tired, but resolute. "I am invoking Clause 4B of the Family Trust. As of this moment, you are removed as trustees. You are removed as beneficiaries." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You are fired. You are fired from this house. You are fired from this money. And you are fired from being my children." A collective gasp went through the room. Disowning children is taboo, but doing it in public on New Year's Eve was legendary. "I do not want to see you," Big Mama said. "I do not want to hear from you. You have 1 hour to pack your personal belongings. Not the furs, not the jewelry, not the art, just the clothes on your backs." She pointed to the door. "And then you get out." Calvin tried to stand up. Mama, where will we go? We have nowhere to go. Big Mama looked at him with zero pity. The guard station is 2 miles away, Calvin. I suggest you start walking. It is cold outside. Maybe you will finally understand how an 8-year-old girl felt. She lowered the microphone. She looked at Detective Miller. They are all yours, Detective. Miller stepped forward. He waved his hand. The officers moved in. It was a coordinated strike. 2 officers grabbed Darius, 2 grabbed Tiffany, and 2 moved toward my parents. Please, Tiffany screamed as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. This is a mistake. I am a mother. I cannot go to jail. You should have thought about that before you stole $50,000, Miller said calmly. Darius was fighting. Do not touch me. Do you know who I am? Yes, Miller said, tightening the cuffs. You are inmate number 742. Let's go. The flashbulbs started popping. The videographer who had been hired to film their triumph was now filming their perp walk. I stood on the stage holding the pearls. I watched my family being dragged away in their finery. I looked down at Big Mama. She was watching them go. A single tear rolled down her cheek. It was not a tear of regret. It was a tear of mourning for the people they could have been. The room was silent again. The guests were staring at us. They were waiting to see what would happen next. I looked at the microphone in my hand. I had one last thing to say. I looked at the crowd. Please enjoy the rest of the evening, I said. The bar is open. The band has been paid in advance. And for those of you who stood by and watched them mistreat my daughter for years and said nothing, I paused. I let my eyes roam over the faces of the hypocrites. Consider this your final notice. The new administration is watching. I dropped the microphone. It hit the floor with a thud. I walked down the steps. I walked over to Big Mama. I handed her the pearls. She shook her head. No, she whispered. Put them on. I hesitated. Me. Put them on, Nia. You earned them. You cleaned the house. I lifted the heavy strands over my head. I fastened the clasp. The pearls felt cool against my skin. They felt heavy. They felt right. I stood behind Big Mama's wheelchair. Let's go home. Big Mama, I said. She nodded. Let's go home. We turned and walked toward the exit, leaving the wreckage of the old dynasty behind us. The police lights outside were flashing blue and red, illuminating the falling snow. It was a cold night, but for the first time in years, I felt warm. End of part 10. End of part. Here is the detailed script for part 11, The Financial Nuke. The script is written in English, optimized for AI voiceover with sharp, distinct sentences and no prohibited punctuation. It picks up immediately where the previous part ended, maintaining the high-speed, chaotic energy of the climax. The ballroom was in a state of suspended animation. The jazz band had stopped playing. The waiters were frozen with trays of half-empty glasses. The only movement came from the flashing lights of the police cruisers, reflecting off the snow outside and casting rhythmic blue shadows across the faces of the guests. I stood on the stage next to Big Mama. My brother Darius and his wife Tiffany were huddled together like frightened animals. My parents Calvin and Patricia stood a few feet away, looking pale and ghostly under the stage lights. They were waiting for a punchline. They were waiting for someone to say, this was all a terrible mistake. But I did not have a punchline. I had a red folder. I stepped forward. The heels of my shoes clicked on the hardwood floor, echoing through the silence. I walked straight up to Darius. He tried to puff out his chest one last time. He tried to summon the arrogance that had protected him his whole life. Nia, he stammered. Put the mic down. You are making a scene. We can talk about this in the office. I laughed. It was a sharp, dry sound. The office, I asked. You mean the office of Tifdari Consulting, the shell company you set up 2 months ago. The company that does not exist except on paper and in your bank account. Darius's eyes went wide. He looked at Tiffany. She flinched. I opened the red folder. I pulled out the stack of documents I had printed that afternoon. It was thick. It was heavy. It was the physical weight of their greed. I did not hand them to him. I threw them. I tossed the papers into the air. They fluttered down like confetti. Bank statements. Canceled checks. Invoices for roof repairs that never happened. Receipts for designer handbags bought with hospice money. They rained down on Darius and Tiffany, covering the floor around their feet in a sea of evidence. "Look at it," I said, my voice booming without the microphone. "Look at your legacy, Darius." I turned to the crowd. I pointed at the papers on the floor. "You want to know how they afford the cars?" I asked the room. "You want to know how they afford the vacations to Dubai? They did not earn it. They stole it." I walked over to Tiffany. She was shaking so hard the sequins on her dress were vibrating. I picked up a piece of paper from the floor. It was a copy of the receipt for the $50,000 necklace she had just surrendered. "You like nice things, Tiffany," I said, stepping into her personal space. "You like to look expensive. You like to look exclusive." I leaned in close. "I hope you like the color orange. Because where you are going, that is the only color they wear." Tiffany let out a strangled sob. She looked at the crowd, searching for an ally, searching for anyone to save her. She looked at my mother. "Mom," she begged, tell her we were just borrowing it. Tell her we were going to pay it back." My mother. Patricia looked away. She smoothed her dress, staring at a spot on the wall, refusing to make eye contact. She was cutting her losses. She was abandoning the ship she had helped steer into the iceberg. I turned to Detective Miller. He stepped onto the stage. He was not smiling. He was all business. He pulled a pair of metal handcuffs from his belt. "Darius Williams Miller," said his voice cutting through the room. "You are under arrest for 18 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of money laundering, and first-degree elder exploitation." Darius looked at the handcuffs. He looked at his hands. He looked at his mother. "Mom," he screamed. His voice broke like a teenager. "Mom, do not let them take me. I am the CEO. I am receiving an award tonight." Patricia did not move. She did not speak. Miller grabbed Darius's arm. He spun him around. He kicked Darius's legs apart. "Get your hands behind your back," Miller barked. "No," Darius wailed. He started to struggle. He tried to pull away. It was pathetic. It was the tantrum of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. 2 other officers rushed the stage. They grabbed Darius. They forced his arms back. Click, click. The sound was loud. It was final. The golden child was in chains. Miller turned to Tiffany. "Tiffany Davis Williams," he said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and grand larceny." Tiffany's eyes bulged. She looked at Darius, who was being dragged toward the stairs. She looked at the police. "No," she shrieked. "It wasn't me. It was him." She pointed a manicured finger at her husband. "It was Darius," she screamed, her voice shrill and hysterical. "He made me do it. He said Big Mama would never know. He said the money was ours anyway. I just signed the papers. I did not know. I am a victim here." Darius twisted his head around, looking at his wife in horror. "You liar," Darius shouted. "It was your idea. You wanted the roof money for the brand launch. You wanted the necklace." They were turning on each other. The perfect power couple was tearing each other apart right on stage in front of the entire Chamber of Commerce. It was glorious. Officer Johnson grabbed Tiffany's wrist. She tried to pull away, her heels slipping on the papers scattered on the floor. "Do not touch me," she yelled. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am," Johnson said, snapping the cuffs on her wrists. "You are a suspect. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." They dragged them both off the stage. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the future of the Williams family was marched out the back door, past the kitchen staff, past the valet stand, and into the back of a squad car. I stood on the stage alone with Big Mama. The floor was littered with the evidence. The air was vibrating with the aftershock. But we were not done. There were two people left standing on the stage, Calvin and Patricia. My parents looked small. They looked shrunken. Without Darius to prop up their ego, without Tiffany to polish their image, they were just two empty shells in expensive clothes. My father cleared his throat. He tried to straighten his tie. He tried to regain some shred of dignity. "Well," he said, his voice shaking. "That was unfortunate. Clearly Darius has made some mistakes. We had no idea." I looked at him. The lies were automatic for him. He breathed lies like oxygen. "Stop it, Dad," I said. "Just stop. You knew. You saw the bank statements. You took the $5,000 hush money transfers every month." "I did not know it was stolen," Patricia hissed. "I thought it was his profits." I ignored her. I turned to Mr. Jenkins, who was standing in the shadows of the stage wing. Mr. Jenkins stepped forward. He was holding a large manila envelope. He walked past me. He walked past Big Mama. He walked straight up to my parents. "Calvin Williams, Patricia Williams," Jenkins said formally. My father looked at the envelope. "What is this?" he asked. Jenkins handed it to him. "This is a formal notice to vacate," Jenkins said. My mother laughed nervously. "Vacate? What are you talking about, Jenkins? We live here. We are the trustees." Jenkins adjusted his glasses. "Not anymore. As of 5 p.m. today, Judge Reynolds signed an emergency order removing you both as trustees due to gross negligence and breach of fiduciary duty." My mother's face went gray. "But where will we go?" she whispered. "This is our home. We have lived here for 20 years. Jenkins shook his head. "Correction, Mrs. Williams. You have lived here as guests of the Hattie Mae Williams Trust. That hospitality has been revoked." He pointed to the envelope in my father's hand. "You have been served. You are hereby ordered to vacate the premises immediately." My father looked around the room. He looked at his friends. He looked at the waiters. "You cannot do this to us," he said. "It is New Year's Eve. It is snowing. You cannot kick us out on the street." I stepped forward. I looked my father in the eye. "Strange," I said. "That is exactly what you said to Zola last night." "Oh, wait. You did not say that. You said goodbye." My mother grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my suit jacket. "Nia," she pleaded. Her eyes were wild. "Nia, you cannot let them do this. I am your mother. I gave you life. You cannot put your mother on the street. Talk to Big Mama. Tell her to stop this." I looked down at her hand. I peeled her fingers off my arm one by one. "I did not talk to Big Mama," I said. My mother looked confused. "What?" "I did not talk to Big Mama to stop this," I said. "I started this." I reached into my briefcase. I pulled out one last document. It was a single sheet of paper with a gold seal at the bottom. I held it up. "Big Mama did not just fire you," I said. "She promoted me." I turned the paper so they could read it. "This is a deed transfer," I said. The room was silent enough to hear a pin drop. "Big Mama has transferred the title of this property," I said, my voice ringing out. "This house, this land, everything inside it. It no longer belongs to the trust." I looked at my parents. "It belongs to me." My mother staggered back as if I had slapped her. "You!" she gasped. "Me," I said. "The disappointment. The auditor. The one you left off the guest list." I checked my watch. It was a sleek silver chronograph. "It is currently 11 p.m., I said. I looked at my parents. "You have exactly 60 minutes until the ball drops." I pointed to the front door. "I suggest you start packing. Anything left inside this house at midnight belongs to me. And I am planning to donate it all to charity." My father looked at Big Mama. "Mama, please." Big Mama did not even look at him. She was looking at her nails. "You heard the lady," Big Mama said. "She is the landlord now. and she has a very strict policy about tenants who abuse children. Officer Miller stepped back onto the stage. He stood behind my parents. "Need help packing, folks?" he asked. My father slumped. His shoulders collapsed. The facade was gone. The arrogance was gone. "Come on, Patricia," he muttered. They walked off the stage. They did not look at the crowd. They walked past their friends who turned their backs on them. They walked past the neighbors who were already gossiping. They walked up the grand staircase to pack their bags while the police watched. I stood center stage. The music had stopped. The party was over. But I felt like dancing. I looked at the crowd. "I am sorry for the interruption, everyone," I said into the microphone. But as I said, "We are cleaning house." I looked at the waiter nearest to me. "Please pour everyone a fresh glass of champagne. We have a new year to celebrate. And this time we are celebrating the truth." I walked over to Big Mama. She reached out and squeezed my hand. "You did good, baby girl," she whispered. "You did good." I looked up at the balcony where my parents were disappearing into the shadows. It was done. The bomb had detonated. The dust was settling. And for the first time in my life, the view was perfect. End of part 11. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight. The sound echoed through the cavernous house, marking the end of the year and the end of an era. The police cars had finally pulled away, taking my brother Darius and his wife Tiffany to the county booking station. The blue and red lights that had danced across the snow were gone, replaced by the steady, cold light of the moon. The ballroom was emptying out. The guests who had arrived expecting a coronation were leaving with a scandal. They scurried toward the valet stand, clutching their fur coats tight, avoiding eye contact with me. I watched them go. These were the same people who had snubbed me for years, the same people who had laughed at Tiffany's jokes and admired my parents' status. Now they were fleeing the sinking ship like rats. I stood at the bottom of the grand staircase. Big Mama sat in her wheelchair beside me. Her head was held high, but I could see the fatigue in her eyes. It had been a long night, but she would not rest until the job was finished. We heard the sound of wheels on the floorboards upstairs. It was a heavy, dragging sound. My parents appeared at the top of the stairs. Calvin and Patricia Williams, the king and queen of Buckhead. They looked like ghosts. My father was no longer wearing his tuxedo jacket. His shirt was untucked. He was dragging two large suitcases behind him. My mother was following him. She was still wearing her gold gown, but it looked ridiculous now, like a costume from a play that had been canceled. She was carrying a tote bag stuffed with toiletries and a jewelry box. They walked down the stairs slowly. Every step seemed painful. When they reached the bottom, they stopped. They stood 10 feet away from us. My mother looked at me. Her eyes were red and swollen. For a moment I thought she might scream. I thought she might rage. But she did not have the energy left. She just looked confused. She looked like she still could not understand how the world had flipped upside down so quickly. "Nia," she whispered. Her voice was raspy. "Nia, please. It is snowing. The roads are icy. Just let us stay in the guest house. Just for tonight. We can figure this out in the morning." I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had given birth to me. I searched my heart for a flicker of sympathy. I searched for that daughterly instinct that says, "Forgive her, she is your mother." I found nothing. The well was dry. It had been dried up by years of criticism, by years of neglect. And it had been scorched earth since the moment she closed the door on Zola. "I am sorry, Patricia," I said, using her first name. It felt strange on my tongue, but necessary. It created the distance I needed. "The guest house is part of the property," I continued, "and as the new owner, I have a strict policy. No trespassers." My father stepped forward. He looked at Big Mama. "Mama," he pleaded, "you cannot let her do this. I am your son. I am your only son. We made a mistake. We will pay the money back. We will fix it. Do not cast us out like this." Big Mama looked at him. Her face was stone. "You cast yourself out." "Calvin," she said. "You cast yourself out the minute you chose money over blood. You cast yourself out when you let your wife mistreat my great-granddaughter." She pointed a crooked finger at the front door. "You wanted to be the masters of this house," Big Mama said. "Well, now you are masters of the sidewalk. Go." My father lowered his head. He gripped the handles of the suitcases until his knuckles turned white. He knew it was over. There was no negotiation. There was no spin. He turned and started walking toward the door. The wheels of the suitcases rumbled on the hardwood floor. It was a lonely, hollow sound. My mother lingered for a second. She looked around the foyer. She looked at the chandelier she had picked out. She looked at the walls she had painted cream to erase our history. She was saying goodbye to her identity. Then she looked at me one last time. "You are a cruel girl, Nia," she spat. The venom was weak, but it was there. "You will regret this. You will be lonely in this big house." I smiled. It was a genuine smile. "No, Mother," I said. "I won't be lonely, because I know how to open the door for the people who actually love me." She turned and followed my father. I walked to the front door. The same heavy oak door that had been the weapon of their cruelty. I pulled it open. A gust of freezing wind blew into the foyer. Snowflakes drifted in, landing on the expensive rug. My parents walked out. They did not look back. They stepped out into the dark driveway. The valet was gone. Their cars were locked and the garage keys secured in my pocket. They had to walk. I watched them trudge down the long driveway, their expensive shoes slipping on the ice, their silhouettes getting smaller and smaller until they were swallowed by the darkness. They were heading toward the guard station 2 miles away. The walk would give them plenty of time to think. I closed the door. The click of the lock was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It was done. The toxicity was gone. The house was empty of malice. I turned back to Big Mama. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the new air of the house. "I am tired, child," she said, "but I am good. My house is clean. Finally." I went to the side table where I had left my phone. I sent a text to the number I had dialed earlier. "It is safe now. Bring her in." A minute later, headlights swept across the front window. A car pulled up right to the front steps. It was not a luxury car. It was my ex-husband's sensible sedan. I ran to the door and opened it again. But this time I did not block the way. I threw it wide open. Zola jumped out of the back seat. She was wearing her puffy pink coat and her boots. She looked sleepy but excited. "Mommy," she yelled, running up the steps. I fell to my knees and caught her. She slammed into me, burying her face in my neck. She smelled like peppermint and cold air. "Did you do it?" she asked. "Did you take out the trash?" I laughed. I kissed her cold cheeks. "Yes, baby. The trash is gone." Zola looked past me into the foyer. She saw the lights. She saw the space. She saw Big Mama sitting in her wheelchair smiling. "Grandma Hattie," she squealed. She ran into the house. She did not wipe her feet. She tracked snow onto the hardwood floors. She dropped her coat on the bench. And I did not care. Let the floors be dirty. Let the house be lived in. Zola ran to Big Mama and climbed onto her lap. Big Mama laughed, a sound I had not heard in years. She wrapped her good arm around Zola and held her tight. "Look at you," Big Mama said. "You are the lady of the house now, Zola. This is all for you." Zola looked around. Her eyes went wide. "Can I have the cake now?" she asked. We all laughed. The sound echoed off the high ceilings, chasing away the ghosts of the stiff, formal parties that had happened here before. "Yes," I said, standing up and closing the door against the cold for the last time. "You can have the cake. You can have the whole cake." We went into the kitchen. It was a mess of catering trays and half-empty bottles, but we found the dessert table. I cut a massive slice of chocolate cake for Zola. I poured sparkling cider into crystal flutes for me and Big Mama. We sat at the kitchen island. Just the three of us. Three generations of Williams women. Big Mama raised her glass. Her hand trembled slightly, but her eyes were steady. To the new chapter, she said. To the new chapter, I repeated, clinking my glass against hers. Zola raised her fork. To the cake, she said. We ate. We laughed. We talked. For the first time in my life, this house felt like a home. It did not feel like a museum. It did not feel like a stage set for a performance of wealth. It felt warm. Later that night, after Zola had fallen asleep in the master bedroom, which was now her bedroom, I sat by the fireplace in the living room. The fire was dying down, casting a soft orange glow on the room. Big Mama had gone to sleep in the guest suite on the first floor. She had told me she wanted to wake up in her own house for the first time in 3 years. I sat there with a glass of wine, a cheap wine this time, one I actually liked. I thought about my brother Darius sitting in a holding cell right now. He was probably calling his lawyer, realizing that the money was gone and his friends were not coming to bail him out. I thought about Tiffany, realizing that her brand was destroyed and her pearls were gone. I thought about my parents walking in the cold, realizing that their title of mom and dad did not grant them immunity from their actions. I felt a sense of peace settling over me. It was a heavy, grounding weight. I looked directly into the camera lens that I had set up on the tripod earlier. I had been recording the whole time. I leaned forward. You know, I said, speaking to the audience who would watch this story unfold. People always tell you that blood is thicker than water. They tell you that you have to forgive family no matter what. They tell you to keep the peace. I shook my head. That is a lie. Peace that is bought with your dignity is not peace. It is submission. I took a sip of wine. My family thought they could treat us like accessories. They thought our value depended on our bank accounts and our skin tone. They thought they could close the door on us and we would just disappear. But they forgot one thing. I tapped the folder of legal documents sitting on the table next to me. They forgot that I have the keys. If you are watching this and you are feeling small because someone in your family makes you feel like you do not belong, listen to me. You do not have to accept their table scraps. You do not have to stand out in the cold waiting for them to let you in. Build your own house. Build your own table. And if you have to burn their table down to build yours, do not hesitate to strike the match. I stood up. I walked over to the window. The snow had stopped falling. The world outside was white and clean. A blank canvas. Tomorrow I would hire a contractor to tear out the beige carpets. I would hire a curator to find the African art my mother had sold. I would fill this house with color and noise and love. But for tonight, I was just going to enjoy the silence. I turned back to the camera. Gia đình không phải là ADN. Gia đình là những người mở cửa đón bạn vào khi bão tuyết ngoài kia đang gào thét. I smiled. Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year. I reached out and covered the lens with my hand. The screen went black. But the story, my story, was just beginning.